Hi guys, I'm Layla.
Hi, I'm Avi.
Hi, I'm Campbell.
Hi, I'm Delaney.
Hi, I'm Gabby.
Hi, I'm Katie.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
And
Welcome
welcome
to
to
Past
Past
the
the
Paddock.
Paddock.
Embarrassingly, we are having to re-record this episode
Yeah.
because I made an oopsie,
It's
but
okay.
it wasn't really my fault,
It's
so
fine.
it's fine.
Trial and error. First episode.
Going into we have a list of stuff we want to talk about, and it's kind of mostly Vegas related, from what I recall. It's like we want to talk about, first of all, like because me and Katie went to Vegas. Everyone else stayed, but me and Katie went to Vegas. And that was super fun and super crazy. So we're going to talk about some of the stuff that happened then. We're also going to talk about stuff with like Franco and that incident, and then Shawls and Carlos and all that stuff that went on as well. And then at the end, we want to talk about, because it's like the end of the championship now, officially, we want to talk about our MVPs of the season, even though the season isn't really over just yet. It's still nice to kind of just put that out there. So, what do you guys want to start with?
I think we should start with Tuesday on when you guys did all the driver meetups and stuff. Or, a lot of stuff happened. So I feel like we should start off with that.
Because what happened was I'm from Colorado, so I had to drive from here to New Mexico, and then we stayed over the night in New Mexico Monday night, and then Tuesday, literally that same morning, we woke up super early and drove to get in line for the Lando meet and greet. Um, it was worth it. It was great. It was wonderful. Here's a picture of that. Um, you know, like I said this before, but I feel like it's so true that I have to reiterate it. Getting in there and doing that felt like getting on a roller coaster. Literally, he was a roller coaster. I can't say that. We, no, he was a roller coaster, and we were all going to see the roller coaster. And so there was like a line. They made us wait outside the entire day, and we kept having people come up to us and ask, what is this?" And then as people would pass by, we'd just hear randomly, "That's that racing driver," or something as they were walking by. It was great. And so we eventually got in after many, many hours, and there was like this whole squiggly line, and they were literally like herding us like cows to meet Lando. And he was just like standing there awkwardly. He looked really scared coming out. He looked afraid of us. He did not want to interact. He did not want to be there. As much as I'm sure he was like happy because of his fans, but he didn't really want to be there.
Mm.
But we still we went through, and everyone was super nice. Some people did go a little ballistic. Didn't you refer to it as something earlier?
Because I've seen like multiple TikToks. There's a couple girls that were very excited to see the favorite driver. And Lando had a certain look on his face. He was a little scared to say the least. I would be too.
He feared for his life. He wasn't sure what had just happened.
It was so funny to see that. His reaction was hilarious.
Then eventually it was my turn, and I got up there and I was like, okay, everyone's having this very straight to the point interaction, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I also don't want to be a robot and not say anything to the man because he is a real person, not a cardboard cutout. So I walked up to him. I was texting everybody here in line, being like, "What do I say? I'm scared. I don't know what to say right now. How do I speak to this man?" Honestly, I don't know why. I feel like he's sassy and he would judge me if I said anything. So I didn't say anything other than what I did say. So I walked up and he was like, "Hey, how are you?" I was like, "I'm good." And I was like, oh, "Okay, let's take this picture." And I kept room between us. I was like, because I love him, but I was not about to shove myself up against Lando.
Yeah.
I did not need to do that to him. He does not know me like that. And so I just kind of stood there and we took a picture, and then I turned to him as I was they made us throw all of our stuff on the floor because they had nowhere. They literally was so cramped in this little room. There was nowhere to put your stuff, nothing. Um, and so I was like, "You're gonna be world champion. Everyone's gonna eat their words." And so he just kind of smiled and laughed, and I was like, "I can die now. I'm happy. Everything
I'm
is good.
good.
It's beautiful. Life is beautiful. I'll never get over it." And my friend recorded it. Like I said before, in hindsight, very important that happened. If that did not happen,
Yeah.
I would have no proof of what went down, and I need proof because I don't even remember what happened. Looking back, like I can't be like, oh yeah, this is what Lando's. I didn't look in his eyes. It's like, hi,
Nonchalant about
nice
it.
to meet you. No, I was
She
like
had
scared of him. In hindsight, people were like, "Oh, in the picture, he looks like he's meeting her because I'm so tall and he's so little." So I was like, "Oh, hi, little man." I felt like he was so small. But
Oh,
yeah, the Franco thing.
Yeah.
Do I talk about it again? Do I say it
Yeah.
again?
Okay.
I'll sum it up pretty quick. I would. Yeah, I think you have to mention that.
Yeah,
Talking about
honestly,
Franco Gate.
I don't want to get into it too far. Franco Gate's a little crazy. We
Yeah,
will go back and
crazy.
talk about all the gates thus far that
Yes.
we've had. But essentially, I went to go meet Franco. The line was super long. Half the people didn't get to meet him. Everyone crowded around this door because they realized that there was only one way for him to leave the building. Everyone crowded. People were screaming, like chanting, like the ole, like the ole 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 chant that they always do. They did that, but for Franco. And so then eventually he came out. Security guards were fully fearing for their lives because these people were not chill. They were not keeping their cool. They were not okay. And so he comes out. People are jumping on him, throwing things at him, screaming, grabbing the back of his shirt, like literally trying to rip this man's clothes off of his body. And so they get in the car, slamming up against the car, and there's a woman next to me, and she has a baby in her baby stroller, and I was like, oh, they're gonna trample her kid. So I was like, I started yelling over the crowd, guys, he's already in the car. There's nothing you can do. Stop banging on the car. You're not gonna get to him. You need to chill out. And she thought I was talking about her kid, like saying stop telling people to get off your kid or something. So she turned around and just slaps me. Literally the most like intense slap from this little woman that I've ever gotten in my life. And this woman is grown. She's not like early 20s. She's like almost like probably 40. So to have a random 40-year-old woman slap me was like a shock, and I didn't feel real. And so I just turned around, or it was more of like a what did you do? And I just kind of looked at her, and she was like, don't say that about my kid. And she had her finger in my face. And I was like, get your finger out of my face. I was trying to protect your child. Excuse you. And then she was like, oh, I'm sorry. I was like, you don't get to hit people. I just like got in the car and like dissociated and then got on my phone and then ate some wings at the Hard Rock restaurant. While like bad Blink 182 music was playing, just like shaking, holding my phone at 2%, looking at the video of me and Lando, just like not believing this was real. And we met Alex Albin, but that was just a very chill interaction. No one was there. We walked up. I told him about what happened with Franco, and he was like, yeah, Franco fans scare me. I'm afraid. And I was like, yeah, you should be. And then I just like walked away, and he signed my hat. And I met Lily, and she was super, super nice and sweet and cute, and just like she had like a little scarf around her head, like she was hiding. So that may have been why no one else took a picture with her because nobody saw her. I walked in. I was like, okay. I saw her actually when he was coming out, so I was like, okay, Alex, get this over with. I'm gonna go find Lily now. So I just kind of walked away to go find Lily.
We can talk about Wednesday. Liveries were revealed.
Yep.
We had the V-carb livery. It was blue, green, sparkly. Was encased in the Topgolf little arena thing. I don't know what you call it. I've never been there, but it looked amazing. And I know, Layla, I think you said that you could see it, right, from where you were sitting or something.
Yeah, the West Harmon zone was like the entire grandstand was right behind Topgolf, so like the wall that the screens were against was literally like the back of the Topgolf net, so you could see it, like the casing underneath, and then you could see the people come up that were collecting all the balls and like stop and watch the race and then walk away. They got their free ticket for the race. I was jealous. I wanted that.
That's great. We also had the steak livery. It wasn't really much. It was just like green flames. It looked kind of cool in the car, but I feel like the concept of the suits was heavily missed. It's not nice. It
It
didn't
was
look
giving
very
like
good.
bad Thrasher hoodies in 2012.
Yes.
Like that was the vibe.
Yes.
Thrash hoodies is
No.
very good. Yes,
It
very
just
good.
wasn't it. I think Sauer. I feel like they always miss with their
Yeah.
liveries. I feel like they always miss.
Steak, I'm just not appreciating it. I miss when it was like Alfa Romeo and just the past teams.
Yeah.
Alfa Romeo had some of the best liveries, in my opinion, and I miss them.
Yeah.
I will always miss them, but maybe Audi will do better. There's also the Alpine livery. It was pink. It was nice. I actually really liked it, but no camo. I feel like disappointed. I feel like disappointed here.
V-carbs
Oh.
livery. I really liked
Yeah.
it.
I really liked it.
loved it, and their suits actually was a hit with them too. And I was like, thank you.
Can we talk about the ugly
Yeah.
freaking Ferrari suits? Because they just look dusty. Like they just look like they were
That's
dirty.
Terrible.
I was like, you look like you're in
Looked
like the
you,
Nevada
like,
desert with
dropped the
that.
beach on it.
And then
Yeah.
we were in the store watching them watching Carlos and Shaw look through merch because that's what they were doing at the Puma store. And I was like, they kept looking at this stuff like this is so much better than the merch that we have right now. They were like they kept really being invested. I was like, yeah, the merch you have right now is kind of ugly. Be so for real.
Yeah.
Like this, Ferrari has no merch in general though. Like McLaren has got like Hollister and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Ferrari
They're
has
eating.
nothing. If you're a Ferrari
Which
fan,
is
you're
very that's very interesting to me because it's like
Yeah.
one of the most popular teams. You don't have like good merch or in any of the stores. You can't like Abercrombie, like Hollister. They're all doing merch. Yeah, everybody, and not Ferrari. Well, we can go into Thursday where Red Bull had their little rumor. Everybody was saying, "Oh, they forgot their wing. They forgot their wing." Or they brought the wrong one, and I don't know. I was like, what?
And that they were trying to ship it from the UK.
It was that their rear wing wasn't fit for the circuit because they also had it was the same thing in Monza because their straight speed is just very slow with their rear wing, but the engineers just trimmed it down themselves. They did a little DIY project with it.
No, I
and that
literally
was
saw
it.
them go out with the
Picture
saw,
came
and I was like,
around
put that
and,
down. Put that
Yeah.
down.
Put that down.
The saw was crazy.
The $20
I
million car.
know.
The $20 million car, and they just took out their saw like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and we're like, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
You know who would do something like that? Tony.
Oh, Tony
would.
would.
Yeah.
You know Tony would.
Someone
Who
explain
would?
Tony,
Tony.
please, because it's not on this episode yet. We haven't talked about Tony.
Oh yeah, Gabby, you gotta go
Say
back
that?
in your deep dive of Tony.
Tony deep dive, go.
Okay, so Tony Gate, everybody. Tony is somebody who commented on. Here's a
If he
picture of
ever
Tony.
sees this, we're
Our
done.
first
We're
commenter.
done.
One of our posts, one of our very first posts, we did a Las Vegas events. We had details. We listed all the events, including Red Bull, mind you. This is a very important detail. Remember this. Red Bull was included in the events. Tony goes and comments, Red Bull? Question mark. Well, I think it was our first comment, and we're all in the group chat hey, guys, Tony's saying we don't have Red Bull events on there. And we're like, it's right there. It's right on the page.
Front page,
Tony-
yeah.
Tony's a blind man. He's a Red Bull fan. And we actually just recently found out that he was at Las Vegas.
Which I feel hurt that he didn't come up to me. Because
I
I was
feel
not
like
speaking.
I was there, Tony, and I replied to your comment.
Tony and Layla were
No,
there, and Tony didn't see you guys.
And honestly, what hurts me the most about this whole situation is that, after all we've done for him, we told him where the Red Bull things were, and after all we've done for him, where was Tony?
Nothing.
Not here. Nothing. Nothing. We got nothing
This
for that.
was crazy.
And the way
Where was
the
the
day
support?
that happened, I was literally chilling in Vegas. I have not been on my phone in hours. I look, it's 100 notifications from the group chat. I open it up and it's just get Tony, and then there's a picture of this random man, and I'm like, who is Tony? And so I had to scroll back and read through, follow the storyline to figure out who Tony was, and it was the most incredible moment of my life. I felt like I had become part of
Life-changing.
something beautiful.
It was
Yeah,
great.
There's Lord Tony Gate. There's not really much else to it, honestly.
Nope.
And it was, no, you guys just felt so offended by
There's more
him
to come.
asking
There's more
about
to
Red
come.
Bull. You guys were just
There's
so
more to
upset
come,
by
I'm
it.
sure. Mhm.
No,
Yes.
we will not see the last of Tony, especially not after we talk about him here. This will not be
Absolutely
the
not.
last of Tony.
I'm sure he'll find us after this.
I think what happened Wednesday, which I didn't get to talk about when we recorded this episode last time, was I met Pato, which was super cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the way that happened was also really cool. I kind of weaseled my way in there. So I went to Culture King super early, which is the store where the meet and greet was happening. And I was like, oh, there's people here, and there's a lot of these people seem so cool. And I asked them to charge my phone for me, and I was doing the simulator and all this stuff. And I met a really nice guy there, who he was like, oh, yeah, Pato's coming, and this is where he's gonna be. And then he took me upstairs and showed me the back special room where they were taking him to shop through the $1,000 of special one items and this cool mirror room and all this stuff. And I was like, for me? Really? And so then I recorded it, but I didn't post them anywhere because I was like, I don't need to. Like, it wasn't anything that I felt like I needed to like show the world, but it was just like a room, and they did a bunch of interviews in there. But I went upstairs, and what was funny about the whole event was that what everyone in the crowd didn't know was that they were allowed to come up the stairs. They just didn't. Nobody did it. And so I was up there, and people like down there were like looking at me like I knew something. And so then I then started instigating the crowd. I would like look over, look down and pretend like I saw him and be like, and then everyone would be like, and then there'd just be no one. And I'd be like, oh, never mind, sorry. And then he
My
did
bad.
come up, he came up the stairs and I was like, oh my God, it's Pato O'Ward. And then he walked by and went back in the back room and I didn't get to talk to him yet. Then he came out of the room and I was like the only person up there. So I was like posted up outside the door. I was like, hey Pato, can I get a picture? You can actually see it in the Culture Kings post. I'm like standing there and I look like I want to die. And I'm like, hi, like, can I get a picture, please? And so he signed my hat, we took a picture. And then the picture didn't turn out that good. So I was waiting to try to get another one. So I stood up there and like followed him and got to record him going through and watched him like race with all the fans because he did like a sim race with two other like he narrated a sim race between two of the fans. And then he came back up and I was like, hey Pato, my picture didn't turn out that good. Can we get another one? He's like, why? Was it a bad angle? And I was like, it was a bad angle. And so we retook the picture, but he was super nice about it and it was really, really cool.
I love him so much. I met him at Indy.
Oh,
He's
I'm
the
so
nicest
jealous.
human being
Oh,
ever.
I want to go to an IndyCar race so bad. I just haven't like
me
been.
too.
I'd
I
like
went
to
to
go
the
to
Indy
MotoGP as well.
500, and it's a completely different experience, but it's really good.
I want to go so bad. I don't even know anything about IndyCar, but I want to learn.
No,
so
I didn't either, but it was like
That's
I had the
cool.
greatest time. I was like, this
I
is
love
cool.
That's so good. Back to F1 Las Vegas. What was it? Friday? Yeah, Friday. Franco had a little crash. A big crash.
Little crash. Hello?
Little crash. He had a pretty big crash in Q2. It was 50 Gs, by the way. I don't know if anybody else wants to voice their opinions on this. Because a lot
Let's
happens.
say that's like 3,500 tons of force, which is,
Mhm.
I think it's 3 or 4. I'm not sure, so don't at me on that. But that's a lot. And it's also
Yeah.
based on how much you weigh. So just like how much your body absorbs. That's like in addition to the car and the wall, and then his body weight. That's how much weight he absorbed during that hit. And so then for him to honestly come out of that car and look the way he did, and to have them even consider him racing the next day was terrible. Like in general, that was a
Yeah.
terrible move.
One less force Max faced when he crashed. I believe at Silverstone. His was 51 G. Franco's was 50. And Max talked about later in the season how he still suffered. Like
Mhm.
lights, things like that when driving. So
Yeah.
in comparison to Franco driving the next day was very, very dangerous.
And not
I
only
feel
was
No,
it
I
was not
fully
just
agree.
dangerous, it was negligent. What it was
Yeah.
negligent from
Yep.
James Vowles, from the entire team. I don't know. We can't say exactly what went about,
No.
right? But we can be sure that there was a conversation had. We know this. There's always a conversation to be had between team principal and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's always is. So they definitely had a conversation about it. Whether or not that was them deciding if even though, because it was later on found out that Franco had a concussion during the race, even though James Vowles came out yapping around, opening, like, friggin' standing in front of his phone, being like, I care so much about Franco's health, and then proceeds to let him race with a
Sure.
concussion. Like,
Sure.
the question
Yeah.
is, was it let him race with a concussion or made him race with a concussion?
Yeah.
Or like he didn't know that he had a concussion and they just didn't tell him. And they were like, yeah, have fun. You look great.
Which
Yeah, like they're like, oh yeah, no, we're not gonna test for concussions.
The doctors definitely knew he had a concussion, but I'm just wondering if they communicated that with him or not.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually they communicated it with him because he knew after the race. He was like, "Yeah, I have a
See, but the question is,
concussion."
when would between the race and those after race interviews, which are post race interviews, are right after the race?
Yeah.
When between that time would a doctor have had time to come and tell him that he had a concussion during the race? He knew. He knew he had a
Yeah.
concussion during the race,
Oh, 100%.
and James Vowles definitely also knew. James Vowles did not
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
That's not something
I
that
think
you
it's
just.
insane that somebody would make that call, especially like knowing that your car is going to be at the back of the grid. Like you're starting from the pit lane. That car is in
Yeah,
pieces.
I
You
think
have
it's a
to
complete yeah.
rebuild that whole vehicle. That
It's
car is like starting from pit lane. You're not scoring points.
It's like if it was like Max Verstappen or like Lando Norris, and there's only 3 races left, and you're in a championship fight. It's still not okay, but it's very different. Like okay, like you can kind of justify it. You can justify it, but it's Franco Colapinto. He's in a Williams, and like you're not gonna get many points. I mean, Alex retired in the race. Like their car isn't suited for Las Vegas. We already knew that. So it's just kind of insane that it was considered for him to race at all. So I don't know.
For sure. It's definitely a different story if you're in a championship fighting car
Mhm.
than a Williams.
I said I think that he was taken advantage of.
There was definitely some sort of like pressure to continue to race, even though he was hurt. There was definitely some sort of pressure. Which was that from James? Was that from the team? Was that from just the fact that he's fighting to get a seat right now and he wants to show that he can perform? I don't know what that was, but it does raise a conversation to be had about what this process looks like and what is acceptable to race on and what is not acceptable to race on. And those are the kind of things that we need to be reassessing, not who gets the fastest lap point. You know, like that's the more important stuff to be thinking about.
Now we can transition on to race day. Lots actually happened, I feel like, for race day.
Yeah.
First of all, Mercedes.
On
flying. And the engineers didn't even know why. That's the craziest part to me.
Yeah.
Literally. And it was like, I think that we can see where this came from, though. Because think about George's last win, even though technically his car was light and all that stuff. And it was technically Lewis in the end. But still, he won. And we kind of see similarities in the tracks and the type of track. With that comes like the idea that I think it's just about nailing down what this car is good at. And it's good at straights. It's good at that. It's a good fast car. And also I think I don't want to discount the idea that because the reason, which is going to sound like I'm not selling out George's win at all. George definitely earned that win. But there's something to be said to the fact that the conditions were so difficult for the other cars. So there might have, like, I think that if McLaren and Red Bull both performed really well this weekend, that car still wouldn't have had the pace to keep up with the other two cars. But it was the fact that the other cars didn't perform so well that they were able to.
Yeah, the other cars definitely struggled. I mean, Ferrari were fast, of course, but they were still not as fast in comparison to Mercedes. And Red Bull was okay, or Max was okay, but I mean, it was still rough. And McLaren, obviously, they didn't have any pace. A lot of them were struggling with their tires, like the entire race. Like, I mean, like a lot of them already switch out in their mediums or hards, like literally 20 laps in. And I was like, they're hard.
I think it was like
it was
medium.
I don't know.
17 laps in, and I was like,
because I know they were looking at Checo's, because Checo went in, like, I think what you said, like 17 laps in on hards. And then the rest of the teams are like, wait, okay, so if he's not, like, lasting very long, we're probably going to be very similar. But yeah, I totally agree that it was just, like, a lot of other cars were at disadvantage this weekend.
Well, yeah, I was reading the general strategy report before the race, because I was sitting there, I was like, I'm bored. We have lots of time. So I was reading, and it did say a lap 1 through 20, like for a pit stop, like the window for that. And that, I honestly feel like had to be the situation because this track had no grip and the tires degraded so fast.
Yeah.
I was hoping that, I was hoping that somehow if Lando pulled off a 2-stop race and like instead of stopping at the very end for softs and getting the fastest lap, he would have stopped a little bit earlier. And even though he would have fallen, he would have been on softs where everyone else would have been on hards and had more grip. And maybe because we've seen him make up lots, like a large gap before. So I was kind of hoping that maybe he could do that again. But I also think just like the general conditions and the way that the pit stops like ended up happening, it wouldn't have been possible in the end, which is disappointing.
Agreed.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times they were being kind of dropped out into like a bunch of people, so I feel like it was kind of hard for them to make up spots again.
And there was so much traffic the whole time. I remember, like, even for George in the front, he was having to deal with traffic getting through everybody.
Yeah, because it was like top 6 drivers or whatever, and then it was like I don't know, somewhere like between like everything Yuki was almost the top of it, and then everywhere else below, it was just all just like jumbled together. It was just a big like gap at the top six, and then just falling.
And then also, let's talk about Pierre. What happened to Pierre?
I feel so bad for him.
I feel so
bad
bad for that man.
P3 in that Alpine tractor bus, whatever, and the way this is the worst part is that he knew that there was an issue with his car before the engineers did. He's like, there's something wrong with my car. And they're like, it looks fine. DNF's like literally 10 seconds later.
And what I think's
I
disappointing
was
is
so
like,
upset.
yeah, no, it's just disappointing because it was like we had the Alpine 1-2 recently, not 1-2, but like next to each other, whatever.
Yeah.
So that was really, really great and really, really awesome. And I thought maybe this was showing like an upwards climb for
I'm
Alpine.
gonna mute myself
But
for a second.
once again, this just showed us that it's not Pierre's fault. And honestly, I have a lot to say about Esteban Ocon's driving most of the time, but he's a good driver, things considered to be in the 20 F1 drivers that there are right now in the world. And so it's like showing that these issues that are happening are not because of Pierre and Esteban. They're happening because of the car. They're driving a literal lawnmower. They're driving a Ryobi lawnmower through the thing. They're just on there and they're just like,
season.
What are they on? What are they switching to?
Mercedes.
Yeah, because Mercedes supplies like half of the grid. So it's a popular engine. So I'm gonna hope that now that they're getting a better engine, a more consistent engine, that we can actually see like they're driving, because they're both very talented drivers. I think they're very talented, but you can't see when you're in such like an inconsistent car that just DNFs all the time.
Yeah.
So
like my hot take is I think we could see Yuki in championship contention if it wasn't for the fact that he was driving a V car. That's my hot
I
take.
totally agree.
No, you're right.
And we don't know yet who has the second Red Bull seat, technically, because
we gotta do a whole episode on that one. That's a big topic. There are so many other like drivers.
There's so much.
There's so much to that could go on for like 2 hours. I
Bring
swear.
Daniel Ricciardo back to Red Bull. No, I know it's not gonna happen, but bring Daniel Ricciardo back.
Bring Daniel Ricciardo back to Red Bull. I don't care what anybody says. That's what needs to happen.
Daniel Ricciardo's career, I'd love to cover in another episode just to talk about that
So
progression.
on one of our deep dives, we'll definitely go into Daniel Ricciardo.
So segueing out of that topic into what I would consider to be one of the funniest things that happened this weekend, which is Charles completely crashing out on the radio.
Yes.
I need to take a good seat for this one. That's so long. Like, that's a long time coming. That reaction is a long time coming from Charles. And I don't know if you guys have anything you want to say about, like, past incidents, but I know that in general, incidents, I saw a Mercedes edit today that was like, it was sad, and then nobody had commented on it, so I'm the only person that commented on it, and all I wrote was, "Oh, did you just stab me?" Because I felt so bad. I was like, "You just stabbed me with this. Stop."
Yeah.
It's hard to mention Mercedes.
Essay
I kind of
comment.
something
Like
from
full on essays. Like I saw one today and it was like 25 pages worth of
Yeah,
Mercedes.
I saw that.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
What?
Yes.
saw
And
that.
she
Drop
was
the
with
link.
her roommates and she was explaining the whole world to them. And they had a box of Frosties with them. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going.
It was insane. It was such a good video. I love it.
People have a lot to say right now about Charles saying that he should just drive better and that Carlos is better and that he doesn't have to follow team orders. But it's like Charles has always followed team orders because he wants to show respect for the system and the sport and also get respect by being like a good, like upstanding driver and doing what his team asks him to do. Is that because he wants to be Ferrari's golden boy forever? Maybe. But it's also just in general, like, he's been doing this for so long and it continually he like gets turned over and other people don't do the same thing as him. They don't put in the same amount of effort. So what can you expect?
I think next season any better, especially with Lewis. I think Lewis would have been the golden boy and Charles would have been put on the back burner. And I think he either realized now or is going to realize that he has to put himself first. Like, forget team orders, if they're like hold off positions for like P3, P4, but he has the fresher set of tires. Like same situation as what happened in Vegas. He needs to go and get P3. Like he needs to stop following these team orders and put himself first so that way he can win a championship one day. And he's not going to if he keeps following. And I think he finally hit a breaking point at the end of the GP, and hopefully that helped him realize like it's not going to get better next season, especially with Lewis. So
Yeah. I like this. I just think he needs to, because I feel like most of the championships like we've had, like the championship drivers, they're all like so selfish, and that's how all F1 drivers should be. That's how you win your championships. You be selfish. Like we've seen that with Max. He has been like asked to like switch spots with Checo at some points. He's like, no, I have talked about this. I'm not going to do it. Sebastian Vettel's done the same thing. Like it's been a long time coming, and I think Charles, to win championships before, like he can't wait anymore longer. Like he just needs to like be selfish, think about himself only, and that's kind of, it's hard because you want to respect your team, and because that's how you're supposed to be. But when you have a teammate like that, and specifically Lewis is a teammate terrorizer, as we've seen in the past. Nico Rosberg, Valtteri Bottas, we've
Nico
seen their
Rosberg.
careers.
Rick Mercedes. I miss
Yes, Mercedes mentioned, I feel like we've seen how, because Lewis is a nice driver. He's pretty clean, but we've seen how he can terrorize his other teammates when he needs to do it. And he's going to a whole new team, he needs to prove himself, like, again, because there's so many people are saying he's washed, all this stuff. Shelf life. Total Wolf. We've seen this.
Sorry.
didn't have a radio the whole race.
Yep,
Yeah.
and his pit stop obviously didn't go very well.
Nope.
Obviously, how would it go well?
How could it?
Oh, you can't talk to your team. How are you gonna have a pit stop?
How are you supposed to know anything?
Yeah, and the fact that nobody knew, like, we were just like, why is their pit stop so terrible? They don't even
I
have
know.
the
I'm
tires.
just like, that's a little weird.
Yeah, it's a little weird, a little random, but you know.
I'm gonna refrain from speaking up on this topic because we all know my opinions. If Lance Stroll has no haters, I'm dead. That's all I'm gonna say. If Lance Stroll has no haters, I'm dead. Because
Me too.
Okay, I can say this with complete certainty, and I said this, and this is gonna be in my TikTok too that I made earlier today. But because he is safe and he is fine, I can put it out there that I did not care. I did not care. I was like, where's Lance? Oh, it doesn't change anything. The silence is so loud right now. The silence
No,
is
because
so
like I'm
loud.
scared to speak up about it, but I
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
No,
No, he's not. If he was
doesn't like
hurt,
Lance.
if he was hurt, that would be a
If he
different
was
story.
hurt, I
You
would
should.
care.
I would care too, because if he got in a crash, I would care. But his car just kind of stopped working. He was fine, and he was sitting on the sidelines, and I was just like, okay, where's
All
the
right.
rest of the race? Where's everyone else? Because
That's
honestly,
cool.
let's be honest. When do we hear Lance Stroll radio? Be so for real. When do we ever hear Lance Stroll radio?
We would have never known that it was
Exactly
because
why
we never hear from
there's
him.
a reason nobody noticed Lance was gone. There was a reason because nobody noticed in the first place. He doesn't even want to be there.
No, he doesn't.
I think there's only like a few drivers we like consistently hear on the radio. It's Max, Charles, Carlos. Not even Lando. I feel like I barely hear Lando on the radio. Like,
Because he doesn't talk on the radio. He just kind of
Yeah.
sits there. No, he literally sang "It's Friday" then once, and now he's like fears to get on the radio again.
oh yeah,
Or-
poor him. He's like, oh, you poor guy. Like,
He's like, I
Like a
can never
song-
hear that song again.
No, I can't. I get like, no.
when I first heard that song and like I heard like the lore with it, like I literally like blasted it on my way to school every single morning. Like it was like my wake up song, like every day. My senior year of high school.
That's a
So,
canon event.
yeah.
Blasting
It's
It's
canon
Friday
event
then is a
for me.
canon event. That's like my mom literally plays the Max Verstappen song sometimes in the car. She'll like play it, and I'm like, please stop.
Oh, it's so good. I don't care. Whenever Max was
It's
having
good. It's good.
I like put it on my phone like full blast and I like run around my apartment with it. And I have no shame.
I love
Max
that.
dancing to it before they took the team picture.
Yes, like
That
Max
That was
was like
so.
Gin and tonic in hand.
Yeah.
I
No,
caught
dude, he's so
Like,
sassy. He was so
Yeah, that's-
thirsty the entire interview before the podium. they had him out there and Terry Crews was there and he was interviewing him and I posted a TikTok about this too. But I thought it was so funny because they were like, "There's no place to better celebrate this than in Vegas." And then Max just kind of looks at them and goes, "Yeah, I know," like that.
It's like, yeah.
He's funny.
And then he just goes, "What time is it? I'm really thirsty right now." He's like, he could not be any less interested in this interview.
And
He did
was
not
in an
care.
interview and he's like, "Well, I'm out of beer."
Well, I'm out
Like
of
looking for his
alcohol.
next one, and then he had 2 gin and tonics at one point.
He's double fisting. I'm like, are you a girl? Because that's literally like every girl's like that's what girls do. Like double
Girlhood.
fisting like gin
Girlhood.
tonics. Yeah,
Max Verstappen
girlhood.
is diva. He is diva.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
diva.
He is.
The way that what he said to Zach Brown was
Yes.
crazy.
No, it was live on Sky Sports. He barely talks to Sky Sports anymore because they don't really like him because they're British. That's just kind of how it goes. And the fact that that was like one of the first things that was streamed with them on Sky Sports.
He goes, "Yeah, and like you said, I could only win in the fastest car, right?" I was like,
Yeah.
speaking of Sky Sports, I was on there.
Oh, yes.
She's famous.
No, I
Maybe
literally
she's on
was
Sky Sports.
the way that if Avi didn't record that and send that to me, I would have never had that.
Because I was watching it and I was like, whatever, whatever. And then I was like, I literally said out loud, I was all, Layla! And I literally had to like pause it and rewind it. And I was like, oh my God, she's literally famous. And I was like, I need to send it to her.
I'm so
She
thankful
was
because
so
literally I had no idea. The interview happened. I was shaking my quaking boots because here I was walking down the street to go and just walk around. It was like literally 9 p.m. and I was like, okay, I'm not my mom was with me and she wanted to go to bed. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go on the town. So I went out on the town to just go explore because there's nothing really I can do in Vegas. Like I can't like drink or gamble and I don't really want to. So I was just kind of like there. I was walking down the street and then I just saw Crofty in a little sparkly jacket and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Crofty." And so then I just kind of hovered next to him as they were recording a band on the street playing music and they were like, "For Checo." And then they started playing music and they were just like screaming in Crofty's face and he was like, "Okay." And he walked away and I walked up and was like, "What are you guys?" I knew exactly who he was. Don't play with me. But I walked up and was like, "What are you guys filming for?" And he was like, and I moved my jacket that was in my arm to show the McLaren logo and I was like, "What are you guys filming for?" And he was like, "Oh, we're Sky Sports F1." And he was like, "Are you a fan?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a big McLaren fan." He's like, "Come here." And he like grabbed me and was like, "Let's go." And so we started walking and he was like, "Okay, pick a card." And I was like, and I picked a card and he was like, "5, name your 5 favorite McLaren drivers." And I was like, I literally
my
felt
God.
like my eye twitch because I know almost all of the McLaren drivers, but the way that my brain, the moment the big old giant camera was pointed at me and Crofty, my standing there, I was like, Lando and Senna
Lando?
and Oscar. And then I met Pato that day, so I was like, "Oh yeah, Pato." And he was like, "Well, he raced FP1, I guess that counts." But they cut that out. So now I look like all I said was Senna, and they cut me saying Senna like off in the beginning, so it looks like I just said, but you can tell I said Senna if you pay attention. I said Senna, I said Lando, I said Oscar, and then they cut Pato, and then I couldn't think of a fifth one, so I just said Lando again, and they did that. So now I just look like a crazy Lando Norris fan.
Justice for Layla for this.
The freaking Franco Colapinto Joe drama.
Oh, yeah, where Joe was like catch you later, Franco, and just end the last lap because
No,
Franco said
literally, because
yeah,
he
was
goes
like Franco, I don't care if I'm by Max or Joe, I'll still pass him. And then like Joe
like
took that
saying
very
best versus worst. That's literally the comparison he did. He could have said
Yep.
Sauber. He didn't just say Joe. And so then Joe went as he was passing. He was like, "See you effing later, Colapinto." And then he like went around him. I was like, "That's so diva. That is so diva."
No,
Joe."
and I didn't even know this happened until I saw a TikTok edit about it.
I was like, I'm glad I'm seeing this part of Joe.
If Joe has no fans, I'm
I
dead.
feel like I
love
just
him.
don't listen to him, like, ever. And I don't know why.
Very reserved. But you know, I do see occasional pictures of him and his cat is like
Yes.
I love
like a
Sweet
cartoon. His cat is like the cutest thing ever. I'm like,
Yes.
how is your cat real? Like it looks edited.
So on the topic of racing legends, we should talk about our MVPs for the year.
Oh yes.
Mhm.
So, Avi, do you want to start with your MVP of the year? Discounting, of
Um,
course, obviously Max was the MVP of the year because he won the championship. But personal MVP, who do you feel like really performed and showed up?
Wait,
um,
do we want to do MVPs for the just one race or for the whole season?
The season.
whole season.
Yeah.
Because the it's kind of season's kind of ended because championship is done.
True.
Yeah. I would start, honestly, you have to say Lando, like, because he got his maiden win this season, and then let alone he even said himself, he was like, yeah, I did not expect to be thrown in there and like having to fight for a championship. Like, I didn't expect that. So for him to not expect it and be so close and close that gap like so quickly, you know what I mean? Not close it, but like bring it like smaller and smaller. And it's like he didn't even know he was gonna do that. So I feel like definitely you got to give props to him. And then I feel like my honorable mention is Carlos. The last couple races, he's been racing for Carlos, and I feel like he's just like, I'm not gonna be here next season, so I need to prove myself. I don't want to be like the back foot again. Like, no, I need to show you guys what I'm capable of, and that's exactly like what he's been doing. So kudos to him because he's definitely been proving himself.
Okay, Gabby's literally mogging at me that whole time, and it really freaked me. Like she was like
No,
sitting there, and
I
she was
know
like,
because every time
she
I
was
look
like,
over,
Diva.
I'm like,
Guys, I'm just staring at whoever's talking. I'm just like over here
Like,
like,
No,
Gabby's
it's no, keep doing it, baby girl. Keep doing it.
Gabby,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
Who's next?
Who wants to go next? Katie, you want to go?
me?
Yeah,
I can go.
you.
Okay, I'm not gonna say Lando again because no. I would give it to Haas. I feel like they've had a really good
All
season
of
for where
us?
they are. All of them. The entire team.
again,
No, I feel like
again.
Nico's had a really good season. Like I'm
Mm.
kind of for them, obviously, like they're a midfield team. They're not gonna be like fighting for anything crazy. But I feel like for where their car has been in the past, they're doing a lot better than I expected them to be. Like they're scoring a lot more points. And like at the end of the season, I feel like Pierre has really stepped up and done a lot. But I like love to look at midfielders and be like, "You're killing it today. You're killing it today, Queen." So that's why I'm like, wait, I'm really proud of Nico. But
No,
yeah,
definitely. That's a good one.
those are my fun little picks.
I'm gonna say my MVP of the year is Yuki Tsunoda. I think Yuki really showed up this year and proved that he can put up a fight and he can, fight for like upper instead of back of field. Like he can be midfield. He can be like more towards the front of the field. His qualifyings have been crazy. His Vegas qualifying, I wasn't even paying attention. And I looked and he was in the 10. Like he made it to Q3.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if I'm right. Yeah, he made it to Q3.
Yeah, he qualified like
Yeah.
8th.
I was like T. So I'm gonna say Yuki because I think that he's gonna do more awesome things, and I think that he's just starting. Like even though he's been in for a while, he's just starting to get opportunities to really show what he's got going on.
I totally agree.
I'm gonna say Max Verstappen because obviously we already kind of said he's like the original MVP, but I just feel like I know because he had the fastest car the first up until Miami, and then but throughout that he was still winning. He won a couple races when he was like in like second, third, fourth fastest car, and I feel like this season really showed all of his levels because last season he like had a rocket ship of a car and he obviously maximized all the opportunities in that. But I feel like it was just such a good season for him to prove himself, specifically with Brazil, P17 to P1, like a wet race. I mean, obviously there was a red flag. He had some luck, but he maximized the opportunities, and I just feel like he just needs kudos for that because it was just such a good season for him, and still winning the championship with 2 races left is very impressive for how competitive the season is. Because there's 7 other race winners.
Yeah.
So very competitive season. I know even Fernando Alonso was talking about how I know because he's kind of a mean person, so he's gonna say this, but he was talking about how impressive Max's championship wins are for how many competitors he has. So obviously he's my MVP, and I do have to say, I have to agree with Katie. Nico Hulkenberg's like one of my favorite drivers too,
Yeah.
and he did so good. Like, I don't know what is up with the Haas this year, but
No, I don't know.
his qualifyings were insane. And I'm really hoping that he'll be in Sauber next year. I'm hoping that they get some kind of race pace and maybe continue on to Audi. He can get maybe his first podium. I will be crossing my fingers.
Yes,
So.
that's correct.
So I think my MVP would probably have to be Franco, which is kind of a random choice, but I think being thrown in mid-season, he adapted really well to like his environment. I think also like he's also acquired a crazy fan base, which is kind of cool to be like a first-year driver and have like your whole country backing you up. And I saw a lot of that like in Austin with fans like screaming for him, and I don't know. I thought he's done really well, like adapting being put in mid-season to a Williams car.
I would say my MVP is Ollie Behrman. I mean, getting thrown in at Jeddah, and then Brazil, like that's a very tough race. And especially not really preparing for Brazil or Jeddah at all, and doing how well that he did and everything like that. And what also he did in Baku with all of that, and like fighting with Hamilton on the track and everything. I think he's done really, really well, especially in like positions where he wasn't prepared. Like he was doing something else and just thrown in the car. I'm excited to see what he does next year with more preparation for it. But I think it takes a tremendous amount to like just jump into a car and do as well as he did.
I agree. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Everyone knows my answer. Sorry. My MVP is Oscar Piastri. I've loved him since he debuted, and he's been impressing me since his debut. Controversial. He kind of put up with a lot of crap. And I know that probably wasn't ideal, but something that I really respect about him is that aside from the fact that he's a great driver, he also is really good at controlling himself. However, I do look forward to his crash out eventually. Because I know it's coming.
That is crazy. Okay.
That's crazy thing to say.
Excited for it. Trust me, he's going to have his like Charles crash out one day on that radio, and I will be sad for it. I digress. I think that's all we have. Question mark?
I mean, I
That
was
is.
gonna just add, kind of lastly, that I do agree with you, Sarah. I think that Oscar has. It's always hard to be what I would consider to be like a second place driver in your team. Not in actual terms of driving, but in terms of priority, because they were prioritizing Lando's championship, trying to fight, even though there was a low chance, still trying to fight that. He got pushed to the back, and that's always hard. But he did so in such a graceful way, and even he didn't allow that to overshadow the fact that he raced so well this year. He really showed himself, and I think as this goes on, either we're going to see problems when it comes to having both Oscar and Lando, because I eventually think we could see them both fighting for the drivers' championship. And in that situation, what do they do? Do they just let them race and risk a crash? Do they Papaya Rules team orders it? What do they do? So that could rise issue next year in 2026. That could become a big deal. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how that goes on. And I guess we'll see you guys next time. And we're going to try to post more frequently soon to make it a little bit more cohesive. But for right now, bear with us while we're trying to get a handle on a posting schedule that works for everyone, because we're all in different time zones. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Teacher wave. Here's my teacher wave. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.